Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Learning PHP with me. In our previous episode, we created a way in which this input can be accepted into a database, and while doing that, we also learned about the HTML special characters function that's built into PHP and implemented it in our create node.php here. HTML special characters create node.php, wherein when we're inserting any body from the front end UI over here, it's escaping HTML and changing that into the HTML special characters so that they are not implemented on the server. So I'll show you what that means. If I go to this, if I just select this, in fact, see, this is sanitized at post super global, but this entire thing is not really a what do you call it, HTML. Up from here, the P tag, the paragraph tag is not really ideally I should have closed that paragraph. Yeah, I did, right? Yeah, I closed it over here. So this entire paragraph tag is not really HTML. Instead, I mean, it is HTML, but it's not really rendered on screen because we sanitized it at the super global level over here, the post super global, while inserting into the database. In fact, if I show it to you on the database, it will be clearer. See here, this here is, if I can just view this, and less than this ampersand LT semicolon, that represents this in HTML. The less than symbol, the angle bracket, the open angle bracket, paragraph class equals, and quote X represents this double quote. Okay, ampersand quote over here, semicolon, that represents this. So that's what we learned in the previous episode. Jeffrey had a slightly different implementation. Instead of sanitizing it at the super global level over here while inserting it into the database, he chose to do that over here in the notes view, in the list of notes, and in the note view, the singular note. I prefer not to do that there because that means we'll have to mention the HTML special cars function. We'll have to run it at multiple instances. Basically, every single time we use that note, we'll have to remember to escape the HTML characters. Instead, let's just sanitize it when we're adding it to the database. So in today's chapter, we are gonna learn about this one, Intro to Forms Validation. Let's see what we learned today. Let's go, Jeffrey. By the way, I just saw his AC/DC t-shirt and I did not think I could love this man even anymore, but fantastic. He has great taste in music as well. Let's go, AC/DC.
All right, welcome back, everybody. In the last episode, we left off with a cliffhanger, didn't we? We currently have the situation where a user can insert empty data into our database table, which of course we don't want to allow. Okay, so the solution is to apply a layer of validation, and I'll show you how to do that in this episode.
Okay, let's go.
All right, so yeah, just to restate the problem, notice right now if I leave the body text area blank, I can still submit the form. And if I now switch to Table Plus and give it a refresh, we have an empty row that has just been persisted.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know what you might be thinking. Your first thought might be, well, let's go to our form, and here's our text area right here. Let's give it a reformat, and let's add the required attributes. So if you're not familiar with this states that, well, I can't make it any simpler actually. It states that the text area is required. You have to give us something in order to submit the form. So if I come back and give this a refresh, like that, notice now if I try to submit the form, it will prevent me from doing so. All right, so yeah, you might think, problem solved, and even better, you didn't even need to write a line of code. Simply append the required attribute to any form inputs that are required.
This is Tailwind, by the way. Tailwind does this.
But it's useful, but it doesn't actually solve the problem. So you can think of this as a layer of browser validation or client-side validation.
Yeah, I can probably submit a post request from my a URL bar, I guess. I think I can do that. It's best probably to sanitize it at the database query level.
And it is useful. It provides immediate feedback to the user to help them. But there's nothing preventing the user from simply bypassing this layer of validation. And I'll show you what I mean. If I go to my terminal, yeah, there's nothing preventing me from manually submitting this post request. And I can use curl for that. So I can say curl-x, and that declares the request type. In our case, we want a post request. The URL, let's switch back, see if we can find it. Yeah, it's going to be localhost port 8888. And then the URI is notes/create. Next, I will pass -d to provide the data to go along with this post request. So I can say, all right, well, the body should be nothing. We submit it. And yeah, if I now go back to Table Plus and give it a refresh, yeah, there we go.
Wow.
So you see what I mean? We've now bypassed that client-side or browser layer of validation. Okay, and in fact, if I just do it over and over, yeah, we're right back in that same boat. Okay, so don't get me wrong, it is useful to add that required attribute because it provides instant feedback, validation feedback to the user, but we can never exclusively depend on it. Okay, so the next step is to add some server-side validation. All right, let's go back to our controller. And yeah, right here, let's see. It sounds like before we run our query, we should first confirm that the body meets our criteria. And we'll do it inline to start. All right, so let's see. I'm going to use the strlen function that PHP provides. Of course, that stands for string length. And we're going to look at the post body attribute. And if its length is 0, well, then it's blank. And that means our validation should fail, right? All right, so how do we represent this? Why don't we start by saying, create a variable called errors, and that'll be an empty array. And then we'll do our validation checks. And if this one fails, we will append to that array like this. Errors body equals a body is required. Okay, so now think about it. If our validation fails, or in other words, if the errors array is not empty,
then we'll probably have to send this back as well via curl. So maybe use the abort method.
should we still run this query to update the database? And of course, the answer is no. We should effectively abort and return to the form and then notify the user about what they did wrong or what validation error occurred. Okay, so let's see. If that's the case, all right, so we can check if an array is empty or has no members or items by using the empty function. So yeah, if I did something like this, we're saying, all right, if there are no validation errors, then it's safe to proceed. So I could nest that here. Otherwise, we don't run that query and we require the view.
Okay, pause. Nested if statements. Is this our first nested if statement in PHP? It is. Cool. I'll show you what that means. Excuse me. So if the method is post, then create a variable called errors and initialize it into empty array. Then if the post body is length, actually, so we could just say if post body is empty, as in like equals this, we can do that. But to be clearer, I just use length is 0, stir length. Stir len of post body is 0. Then append to the, sorry, let me add a space here. Append to the errors array. Errors append body body is required. This is a required field. Body is a required field. FIUD. And if yeah, that's fine. Semicolon. Then if the errors is empty, right? So if array length errors, if empty errors. So this is another function. This is so useful. Then run this code. Okay. Why are you yelling at me? Thank you for stopping yelling. Thank you that you stopped yelling at me. Is this the right format for this? Errors body is this. Interesting. Yeah, that makes actually more sense. Okay. A body is required. Body is a required field. That's fine. So what we're doing is we're adding an associative array inside errors with the key of body and the message body is required field, and if empty errors. Okay, let's see if, but it should probably abort as well. Abort with a 403.
But now when we require the view, there is an errors variable. Okay, so let's see what happens now. Actually, let's do this. Right now, I can't submit the form because we added
remove the required class tag.
That required attribute, which is helpful, but it's not helpful when I'm testing this out. So just temporarily, I'm going to disable that. But yeah, in real life and at the end of the video, I will return it. Okay, so one more time, I try to submit the form, and notice if we did everything correctly, well, actually, let's clear that out, and then we'll try it again. So yeah, I will submit this form a bunch of times, and if we did everything correctly, when I give this a refresh, we no longer have those empty.
Yeah, it doesn't. So let me just give you an echo of validation works. Okay, let's try that. Create new node. What happened? As usual, I forgot to add the semicolon. Sorry. Reload. Save. Yep, validation works. Okie dokie. Okay. It wouldn't have entered the database here. See this? I can refresh. Can I refresh it? Yeah, refresh. See, it did not enter the database here.
Records. Okay, so our validation is in fact working, but now the next issue, as we discussed, is that we're not providing any feedback to the user, so they have no clue what the problem is. Okay, let's do this. Let's go into our view, and yeah, right below the text area. So let's do this. Let's say, look at the errors array and see if we have anything for body. And if we do, then we should display that validation message for the user, like this, errors body. And then we can close this out. Yeah, and I think that would do the trick. So now if we come back and I submit the form, yeah, it doesn't look too pretty right now, but at least we're providing some level of feedback to the user, which is great. Okay, so now let's make it look a little more attractive.
Okay, pause. Let's do this. So he did a PHP if statement, right? he went to the node create view. Okay, here is the text area. Right after the div for the text area, I believe he did this. Yeah, correct. No, in the same div he did that. Okay, so before closing this, although I can change it here, let's see what happens. Body is required. Let's see. Yeah, that doesn't look too bad at all. I'll keep it outside in the next div. I don't mind how this looks. I actually prefer this. Semantically as well, it's in the next div. Okay, so I need to add this in a if statement. So quotation PHP mode if there is set what is set errors array body, yeah, then then close this. This is the format, right? Yeah. Yes. And if PHP and if semicolon. Yeah. Okay, let's go. Cancel notes, create note. This is fine. Okay, love it. I might want to use the same as this. Maybe add a padding class. Okay. Okay, I don't mind this at all. Padding. Let's see what he does though.
By saying, how about make it red, and then extra small, and then a little margin on the top. Okay, one more time. And yeah, I think.
Okay, I don't mind this. Text is small, block, font, medium, text red. Of 500. He added 2 padding, I believe. 2 margin. MT2. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Notes. Create new. Okay. Okay. Not bad at all. I would like there to be some sort of padding to the left as well, but it's fine.
I think that looks fine for our example. Okay, so now think about it. We have 2 layers of.
Sorry, I have to change this to 600. Yeah.
Validation. We have the client side or the browser validation, but then we also have a second server side validation that can't be bypassed. So even if we go through the terminal like we did earlier, notice body is required. Yeah, there it is. It doesn't work here either. And just to prove it, if we go back to Table Plus and refresh, yeah, there's no empty record here, which is really good. Okay, but we're still not done. Yes, we are ensuring that you give us something, but what if you give us too much of something like this? I often get this with the Laracast forum, where people think it's appropriate to paste 10,000 lines of code that they want your help with. And yeah, you may or may not want to allow for that. So yeah, I'm just copying and pasting this like a crazy person to show you that right now, you could give us a massive text that we then insert into the database.
But varchar 255, it should reject it, I guess. Or maybe truncate it. Let's see what the behavior is. What I mean is, see this. In the table plus, if I look at in the database table, if you look at the data type, oh, it's text, it's not varchar 255. Interesting. This could have been varchar 255 over here to limit it to 255 characters, but it's text. Interesting. Let's see.
And again, maybe you don't want to allow that. All right, so let's give it a shot. And yeah, as expected, we blindly throw all of that junk into our database table, which isn't ideal. So it sounds like we need a way to apply a maximum number of characters that we will allow, or a minimum. Like imagine...
Same as this, if stir length post body is greater than 255. See over here. See, if stir length post body is greater than 255, arrested body too long. Okay, let's actually do it. Else if star length post body is greater than 255. Errors. I don't know if it should be else if or just another if. I guess it can be else if. I don't see why not. Errors. Body is too long. Use less, use fewer than 255 character. Okay. Characters. Excuse me. Characters. Is that the right spelling? Yeah, it is. Okay, cool. If I go here, notes, create a new one, and remember to add the semicolon. More than 255 chars. I'll just copy paste this. This is probably more than 255 cars. Oh, interesting. It gives me a body is required. So maybe we need to not have an else if, but this notes, create new. Interesting. So the error is not overridden on the server level. Maybe if I restart the server, it'll work. But I know this is not the right solution. But let's see if your theory is correct. Notes. This should give me the different error. It doesn't. Okay, let's see what's wrong.
You're creating a registration system, and you want to say...
Oh, sorry. Am I creating this at the back end? No, right? I hope I'm not. Data, refresh. Yeah, that's a relief. I'm not doing it at the back end, so at least that's fine. The error validation.
Well, the password that the user provides should be at least 7 characters and at most 255 characters, right? You want to set a minimum and a maximum for the number of characters that are provided. These are all things that validation can handle. All right, let's get to work. I will clear that out, switch back to PHP Storm, and yeah, why don't we do another layer of validation?
But one second, this should just not give me that error. Let me try and follow along up until then. Let me comment this out. This should work, no problem. Notes. This should work, no problem. Notes. Yeah, it does. And if I do this, then this should also work. Excuse me. What problem? Yeah, it does work, but problem. Refresh the table. So fun to say. That's such a fun to say sentence. I'll delete this. Refresh the table. Excuse me. Okay. So we're here. Refresh this. Okay. We are at the same place that he was. Now let's see how he validates it.
Let's do this. Let's copy that rule, and we will run another check. If
Oh, did I do something silly? No.
the length is greater than some kind of arbitrary threshold you've set for your application, in this case, 1,000 might be too little. It just sort of depends on what these notes are. Can they be incredibly extensive, or are they really intended to be short notes? It just depends on what you're building. But yeah, for the example, we'll say, okay, the threshold, the maximum is 1,000 characters. And if you've gone over that, we can say the body cannot be more than 1,000 characters. All right, so we'll switch back, but actually real quick. Notice before I do that, you can imagine situations where for any form input that the user fills out, there could be multiple validation violations that you need to report. Like, well, you did this wrong, but you also did that wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to allow for that, we might need to structure things a little bit differently. But for now, let's just keep it simple.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyways, we submit the form, and sure enough, a body is required. Now we require something, but I will add so many characters that will hopefully take us over the 1,000 character maximum. We submit it, and the body cannot be more than 1,000 characters, which is
Interesting. He did exactly the same thing that I did, but got different results. Too long. Body must be fewer than 255 characters. Oh god. No, this is fine. If the length is greater than 255, errors should be this. Right. Create new. More than 255 for sure. Why am I getting the wrong error? I'm happy that I'm getting an error, but why am I getting the wrong one? So if I go to create node view, oh god, I'm hard coding it. Jesus Christ. Can we edit this out? I'm sorry, this is one of the dumbest mistakes that I've made in this entire series. I am so sorry. I am incredibly deeply sorry. So, oh my god. Hard coding. Jesus, hard coding error message expecting different results. Wow, such a vibe. Error, so sorry about that. We want body here. Oh god, let's go. Yeah, let me just refresh, it'll work. Yeah, see, it did. Let's go. Too long, body must be fewer than 255. Create new, I'm sorry. But hey, you live and you learn. This is fine. So you saw how I debugged it? I followed this and saw that this is okay. But then this is passed on to here where it is viewed and saw that this is not okay. And that's where I went and fixed it. Cool.
It's great. But now we're on to the next problem. And I'm sorry, I told you, all of programming is solving problems. It's
Don't apologize. Don't be sorry, Jeshri.
all you do. So yeah, the next problem is, even if you make a little mistake like this, maybe you didn't intend to do this, notice I submit the form, and I've now lost everything that I typed there. And maybe I would have preferred to fix the mistake
There's a class called persists.
rather than starting from scratch. Very likely that's the case. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, let's come back and let's go to our view, and maybe right here as the value, of course, we can just add gibberish here, and that will be included. So maybe we could just say, well, if we have anything in the post message body for this, then we should echo it out.
Okay, let's do it. So we're in the create view here, and where did he do it? Inside the text area, right? Okay, over here. PHP, let's enter PHP mode. If we have something in the post body, then echo it. Correct. Sorry, not this. Question mark this. Echo the post body. And PHP and if. Okay. Excuse me. Let's see. Create node. There's nothing here. Wow. Post body. Post body. I guess there might have been something there. Notes. Create new. Interesting. What is this? If I copy and paste it, it's just an empty this thing. Interesting. Let me just echo. Hey. Why? Okay, let's see how he does this.
So maybe something like this. Echo post body. But yeah, it's not enough to do this. This might be your first thought. But notice if we give this a refresh, yeah, we get a warning, undefined array key body. Because remember, if we're just performing a GET request, then the post superglobal will be empty, and that means there will...
Right, if we'll need to validate this as well. If server request method post and post body is not empty. So I'll say if post body is empty, if server request method equals post and so request method. Why are you yelling at me? Notes. No note. Oh god, because I need to put this in the parentheses. Yeah, this should work. You know, even in the GET request, I'm getting this. Let's see.
will not be a body key. So we can't always assume it. I'll show you a little trick here though. I'll show you the long form and then the shortcut. In the past, we would use the isSet function. So look in this array and let me know if a body key is set or exists. And if that's the case, I can represent that with a question mark. Then we will echo out that value. Otherwise, we will echo nothing. Yeah, I don't know if we've reviewed this yet. This is the
Ternary operator. I wanted to do that, but it seemed a little complicated just right now.
ternary operator. Think of it as a alternative syntax for if-else statements. So the question mark is if. So if this condition is true, then do this. Else, represented by the colon, do this. All right, so yeah, you'll often reach for it for simple little one-liners that aren't too complex. But you can see right here that my editor is squawking because there's actually an easier way to do that. So this is the benefit of using an IDE, is they will often give you little tips like this. So notice I can replace this, and this is the equivalent. I think it was introduced as part of PHP 8 or 8.1. I'm not sure. Maybe 8, something like that.
Wow.
But yeah, this is the equivalent. So yeah, these two question marks here.
Wow. Okay, let's go. So I don't need any of this. Wait. I'm in the wrong if statement. I don't need any of this. I'll just say, does it exist? If it doesn't exist, then just do this. So echo post body if it exists, and if it does not exist, echo a blank string. Notes. Create new. Man, why am I getting an empty this thing at the start? Is it because I'm doing something? Okay, it's because this. The tabs are being interpreted, aren't they? Yeah. Notes. New note. See, that's what was happening. The empty spaces between the excuse me, text area tag were being interpreted as paragraph spaces.
Here, technically, they are referred to as the null coalescing operator.
So the only reason he's not getting it is because, see, the closing angle brackets here are touching the PHP mode over here. So a nice little gotcha.
If you want to get some points at dinner parties or lose some points more realistically. But yeah, it just checks if this value exists and is not null, which is basically what we were doing earlier. So yeah, if it exists, then echo it. Otherwise, echo an empty string. All right, come back, give it another run, and yeah, I think we're in business here. So now, if I paste in something that breaks the validation like we did before, notice that this time we see the validation error, but we don't.
Okay, let's try that then. Notes, create note. Sorry, more than 255. Yeah, it persisted. Love it. Thank you. This is so good.
Don't lose what we typed into this text area. And yeah, that's probably what you want. Okay, so now I think I've taken up enough of your time for this episode. But yeah, if we switch back to our controller, this does the trick, but as you can imagine, it could get messy very, very quickly. And then further, if we repeatedly perform these checks for every single form on our site, that just doesn't seem to make sense to me. And that's a little too much duplication for my taste. So in the next episode, we're going to extract all of this into a dedicated validation class. Okay. I'll see you then.
Let's go. Thank you. Let me just add the required field in Tailwind over here. I think it was on text area, right? Notes. Create new. No, it wasn't text area. Where was it? Oh yeah, it wasn't a class. It's nothing to do with Tailwind. It has it's basic HTML. Sorry. Required. Yeah, required. Excuse me. Yeah. It's HTML, not Tailwind. Please fill out this field. Okay, let's go. I'll remove this for now. Good to know, because we're gonna refactor it in the next episode. So let me give you a quick recap of what we did today. We mainly worked on the validation for this form. Well, as the title suggests, we added two validations. One is the form, the note body is not empty, and the second is the note body is not too long. In my case, too long is anything above 255 characters. So first we check the length of the string of the body. So str length body, strlen body is, if it's 0, that means it's an empty string. Then you know what, there's a simpler way to do this. If not, this just means the same thing, but to be more explicit, I'll keep it like this. Okay, then the error should be, then we add the errors onto the errors array. We add body is required. Then if the body is more than 255 characters, then we add to the errors array that this is too long and it should be fewer than 255 characters. But if there are no errors, meaning if the errors array is empty, then we post it into the database like we did previously. On the front end, we created we've looked at two ways of creating conditionally rendered elements. One is via PHP. If the errors body is set, then display this error with this Tailwind CSS class, and if it's not set, then it won't display it at all. Also, the other way to do this is if the post body, this is nullish coalescing, or first up there was a ternary operator which we didn't do because it seemed a little too wonky, but this seemed a little more elegant. If the body exists, then post echo that body. Remember, we are in echo mode over here. Echo the body if it exists, and if it doesn't exist, echo an empty string. Simple, easy peasy, beautiful code. Thank you for watching another episode and learning PHP with me. We're following along to Jeffrey Way's tutorial series on laricast.com. He's also posted this on YouTube. Both of the links are in the description of this video. Do check him out. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again next time. Take care. Bye.